The Empowerment Show aims to equip individuals with the necessary tools, knowledge, and confidence to make informed decisions and take control of their lives. It also focuses on ensuring access to essential resources and the opportunities.
Well, good evening. How you guys doing? It's 5 o'clock. We usually have our time to talk about politics. We talk local politics. We talk about politics from all over the world, but we do talk politics and politics. We try to give you a good understanding about what's going on in today's world as far as politics is concerned and this administration. Got a lot of crazy things going on in this administration. One of the things that has been happening, a lack of due process. So today I brought a young man with me. His name is Patrick Best. And also, as always, I got my brother with me, Ronald Yates. So we always start the show off by saying that there's things that we like to be grateful for. So right now, I'm very glad to be in this space with Patrick Best. Is he there? I've been listening to him. I don't hear him at the doorbell. Well, let me see if my other brother is there. Ashe, you there, brother? Let's see. Hey, what's happening, man? How you?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Ashe, I'm doing very well.
I
This
say,
evening we got a nice little surprise for you, Mr. Patrick Best.
ah,
Boom,
okay.
there he is.
Hey, how are you?
Okay.
This is my partner. His name is Ronald Yates. So yeah, how about we do
I
it?
think we met briefly at the AARP barbecue.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He's always at one of those places.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, this evening we were talking about. I wanted to bring up due process of law, because it seems like a lot of things are going on. Like you got people who are being arrested, taken into the courthouse, and then the judges are kind of setting them free, so that when they get outside, they're being picked up by ICE. So the judges are saying, "Hey, we letting you guys go free just so that they can be picked up by ICE." And a lot of things that are going on with the migrants, there seems to be no due process. You snatch you up, put you in jail, or send you off to some island somewhere or some other country somewhere, and there's no due process being done. What do you think about that, Mr. Best?
Well, so obviously the due process is one of the things that's protected under the Constitution. So we have due process under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. We have due process under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. There's certainly some enforcement mechanisms for that, but I've certainly read the same things that you have, that people are not getting their right to trial. They're not getting the right to produce their evidence. I have not seen that here where we are in Monroe County, but I've certainly read about it, and I've certainly seen the articles and the news stories on it.
Yeah. So let's say it does happen to slide this way over to Pennsylvania, because things seem to be drifting all over the country. It's just going from one state to the next. So what's going to happen when it shows up here? How do we handle that?
Well, obviously, the courts are the first line of defense. So clearly, I mean, I'm running for judge. One of the things that we've been telling people is it's important to have judges that understand due process, that are going to safeguard your rights, because you do need the court involvement. You need judges who understand it, who are willing to make sure that they uphold the Constitution, that they uphold your individual rights and individual liberties, and that they are safeguarding the due process, because really it does come from the judiciary. But outside of what we do on the state level, because the Court of Common Pleas seat is actually a state judiciary seat, we still have to make sure that the federal judges are doing what they're supposed to do. That's a little bit more difficult, because those are the judges that are appointed by the president. They're confirmed by the Senate. There's no electoral process for them. There's no real way to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do, other than through congressional oversight, which there may not be too much of right now. So it is tough to say on the federal level what can be done, other than making sure that to the best of your ability, that you're engaging lawyers to protect your individual rights, and make sure that the lawyers are filing what needs to be filed in the federal court.
So how's your campaign going? I'm sorry, brother. I'll be with you in 1 second. Ashe?
Sure.
How's the campaign going?
Things are going great. We have about 42 days left. We're moving very quickly now. Everything is happening. We're at events every single night. We're meeting people. We're knocking doors. We're doing everything we can to get our message out there in the last 6 weeks. and we're going to see signs going up, mail pieces going out. All of that stuff's going to be happening now pretty steadily over the next 6 weeks.
Okay. I'm the one to ask you questions, but Mr. Ronald Yates, he's pretty much the analyst. He's pretty much the ones that's going to ask you a tough question if there is one. So let me introduce Mr. Ronald Yates to you. Mr. Ronald Yates is a hell of a man. As I said, he comes as our analyst. He comes here as our co-host, and he was also I co-host with him on other shows and other radio stations. So he's been around a while, and he understands politics very well. Mr. Ronald Yates, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for that introduction. So, Patrick, I have a question for you in regard to something you just said. You said that the courts are our first line of defense. That used to be the case. I'm not so certain that's the case anymore. For the last, 30 years, what we've seen from the Supreme Court is a great deal of judicial activism, whereas the court is interceding in cases where these cases haven't even been brought before the federal judiciary. Then we have a situation where the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, is stacked with ultra-conservative justices that are basically signing off on anything that the president wants, even though it clearly violates state and federal law. So when you say the first line of defense is the courts, is that still the case?
So when we're running for judge, we're sort of bound by some judicial canons, which don't really let us talk about politics in the same way. So what I can tell you is that when I speak about that, I can say on the local level, I still believe that that's very much true, that our local judges are doing their best work to protect our rights. Whether or not in practice that's true, I can't comment, but I can say that according to the way the Constitution is written and that things have gone presidentially over the last 200 plus years, it really comes down to the courts to protect our rights. I think your point is that happening in practice? And so again, I can't really comment on it because of our judicial canons and it's sort of a political question, but your point's well taken.
Okay. Was that your question, Mr. Yates?
Well, I understand your position about the judicial canons. Oh, this isn't really politics. This is real life for people. This is real life for the people who are, quote unquote, here illegally. This is real life for people who, there was just a decision that came down from the Supreme Court that essentially says that now race can be considered as a factor in detaining people. So there are a lot of people who are American citizens who are being detained by groups like ICE, being held for an inordinate amount of time without the right to an attorney. And then you see where members of the U.S. Congress have been arrested for going to these ICE locations where they have oversight. So I understand the judicial canons. However, again, this is real life for people. This isn't just politics. This is every day where you have people who are afraid to go to work, people who are afraid to seek healthcare, people are afraid to take their children to school or send their children to school for fear that, ICE will show up. Pretty much like the Gestapo did during the Nazi era and whisk away their children. Children afraid that their parents will be whisked away. So I get the judicial part of it, the canons, but this is everyday life for people. And it goes way beyond politics.
I agree, and I certainly appreciate that. It's just difficult for us to comment on it because if we get cases that we have to hear, and we made comments about it, we would have to recuse ourselves. So when you're campaigning as a judge, it's very strict on what we're allowed to talk about. So again, I would love to engage you on that, but certainly, unfortunately, due to the timing of the campaign, I'm not able to get into the weeds as much as I would love to.
So let me ask you, as being a judge, do you pick a side? Or you Republican, Democrat, or does that really make a difference?
No, in fact, I mean, you run under a party. So the way it works in Pennsylvania is you run in the primary, generally cross-filed, meaning under both parties. You run on the Democratic ticket, you run under the Republican ticket. You could win one side or the other side or both. And in November, which is this coming election, you run under whatever party you receive the nomination for. So I received the Democratic nomination, so I'm running as a Democrat in November. But once you're elected, you're really divorced from politics. It's a nonpartisan position. You're supposed to be able to read, interpret, apply the law without regard for really any partisan preference. So I'll always be registered in a particular way, but when it comes to applying the law, you're supposed to be able to do it independently. So it's a weird system they built where you run as a Democrat, let's say, but then when you're elected, that you're supposed to be nonpartisan.
Yeah, just a little off track, but I heard that maybe the little birdie, Janet Jackson, is she running as a Republican and as a Democrat?
So she also won the Democratic nomination. So on the ballot, she'll be listed as a Democrat. I can't really comment beyond that.
It seems like she's doing more than just being a Democrat. I really like to take politics out of the law altogether. I know that's virtually impossible to do, but from what I've been seeing is a lot of people are they're not exactly bipartisan when it comes to making decisions. And the way it's been coming down from Washington, D.C. down to the lower courts, which you would be, down to the lower courts, they've been forcing these guys to do whatever they want. And in other words, if you don't kiss the ring, then you may be out of a job.
Yeah, we've seen some of that. The good news about the position I'm running for is that it has nothing to do with the federal government. So there's literally nothing that the federal government can do. It creates what we call judicial independence. It's a 10-year term. During that 10-year term, the only way to be removed would be for basically some crime or some other ethical concern that would cause an impeachment. But aside from that, it's a 10-year term. It's designed to create judicial independence. You don't, without fear of removal for making a decision one way or the other. You're supposed to do the right thing without political consequence. The federal government is not involved in our state courts other than when we have to interpret federal law. We do look at federal decisions, but other than that, there's no oversight. Like, we're not part of the president's budget or anything of that nature. It's all done through Harrisburg, through the state. So the state sets the court budgets. So it's in that way, there's no real concern that the Court of Common Pleas is going to have an issue with the federal government, which makes it nice because, again, you maintain judicial independence. You do get to do the right thing without worrying about a retribution in any way, either from the state or from the federal government.
Yeah, I wish Letitia James, I wish she was in that category, because they seem to be attacking her for some reason and going after, what is it, the mortgage or some other nonsense that they keep attacking this woman about. And the other judges that they've been getting attacked left and right. If you don't do my way, then it's the highway. And the government that just seems to not have a lot of fingers in things, they seem to have their fingers in a whole lot. I mean, just ask Jimmy Kimball and what's the other one? Gobert. I mean, I've never seen the government act in such a way. I know that's way out of your district and that's way out of your, but I'm just making a point.
Well, those are executive functions, right? So the things you're talking about. So the FCC is involved with the television, and you mentioned Letitia James. That would be the law enforcement side, which is executive. So those are all functions that are under the president. The courts, and even the lower courts in the federal system, are supposed to be independent from the executive branch. They have lifetime terms. They also can't be removed. But the problem, what makes it a little bit different, we talked earlier about the politicization of the Supreme Court. Because that's an appellate court and its decisions are binding on the lower courts, when the Supreme Court makes a decision, whether the lower court judges like the decision or they don't like the decision, they have to follow the decision. So those decisions at that level, both the Supreme Court level and then sometimes the circuit court level, so the level below, those are binding on those lower court judges. And in some way, they're what we would call strongly persuasive authority in state court on certain issues when we're interpreting federal law. So we do get stuck in many ways with what the Supreme Court does. I say stuck, but it just becomes the law of the land unless Congress acts otherwise to change it.
So you don't have total control, in other words.
Well, I mean, we have independence, but our job is to apply the law, right? So the law is interpreted by appellate courts. So even if I were to win this election, I become a judge of the Court of Common Pleas, I still have courts above me, right? So even in Pennsylvania, we have the Superior Court, Commonwealth Court, which are above the Common Pleas, and we have the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Those judges issue decisions that affect our decisions. We have to follow the law that they set, or I should say the way that they interpret the way the state law is written. So when those appellate courts issue decisions, we're obligated to follow those decisions in a similar way that happens in the federal system as well.
My brother.
I have a question regarding the Supreme Court decision from several years ago. And essentially what the court said is that now money is speech, and that as much money, there is essentially no limit on how much can be invested or given to a particular candidate for a senatorial race, judicial race, whatever, right? Money now is speech. So can you explain that law and maybe give some background on how you can remain independent when all of this money is flowing into these campaigns?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the case you're talking about, that's the big one, is Citizens United. But
yeah,
really, it's not exactly how you phrase it. So money is speech, and there are no limits on independent expenditures, but there are limits at the federal level on what you can give to candidates. So those limits are still applied for individual candidate giving. Where the spending goes wild is on those, what we call them, independent expenditures. That's where these super PACs come in and they can spend as much money as they want on campaigns. They don't coordinate, at least they're not supposed to coordinate with individual candidates, but they're allowed to spend whatever amounts of money they want. The state law has always been a little bit different because we actually don't have limits on giving for individual candidates. So to answer your question, how do you remain independent when people are giving you money? I mean, the answer is really simple. While we do have donors, the chance that we're going to have a case with an individual donor is low. And to the extent you would have a case with an individual donor, we would just recuse ourselves and let another judge in the court do it. So we have a little bit of a luxury there because we have enough judges in the Court of Common Pleas that if a friend of mine was before me, I would just say, oh, I can't do this case, and give it to somebody else. So the way we make it independent is we're just making sure that we're never hearing a case where we have a direct interest or that we know the litigants on that level. So obviously sometimes we're going to know litigants, but if we have a relationship with them or something that would compromise our ability to make an impartial decision, we would recuse ourselves.
So you're saying that in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there is no limit on how much you can give to an individual candidate?
Correct.
Wow.
Now that's different for federal races. You mentioned like Senate and things. The federal government has different rules, but the state elections don't have those limits.
I can't see how that doesn't open the door for some kind of crime, some illegal nonsense going on, especially with so much money on the table.
Well, people do get caught. I mean, people commit crimes, people get arrested. There's certainly a trail of that. There's convictions. It happens.
Well, when you say this happened, you remember Mark Chivarella?
Yeah, of course.
And there was another judge with him that was accepting gratuities from a private company that was opening up juvenile facilities.
Sure.
Facilities in the Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually these two judges were both sent to prison.
Correct.
Now, when you have a situation like that, where corporations can give unlimited funds to particular candidates, it is right for graft.
Well,
it's right for
correction. So corporations cannot donate. So when I said there's no limits, there's no limits that a person can give. Corporations cannot donate at all politically in Pennsylvania. No corporate contributions.
But can a corporation give money to a private citizen and a private citizen just give the money to you?
Well, with limitation. So if they're doing it as pay and then they choose to use their pay that way, like I get paid by a corporation and I use my money, that's fine. If you do it in a way where you're doing it as what we call a straw transaction, that's not permitted. So if you were only doing it to avoid campaign finance laws, obviously that's not permitted. But when you mentioned that, we call it was known as the Kids for Cash scandal with Judges Conahan and Chivarella. That was a little different because those weren't campaign contributions that they were getting. They were actually just getting paid. They were just giving them money, which is far worse.
Any more questions, my brother?
Not at the moment. I think we put a bit too much pressure on Mr. Best at this point.
This is like I can talk about stuff all the time.
You know,
I've been around this man for I'm sorry, I've been around this man, I don't know, a few years now. I mean, we're not even talking a couple of years, we're talking a few years, and believe me, I don't think as much as you can say that would really like intimidate him.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
you know, we are a friendly show, and we want people to feel comfortable, you know, coming back and talking with us. You know, but these are the things that are on the minds of a lot of people across this country. You know, when you can, and I was talking to somebody today at work, when you consider, so Brother Stevenson and I about, you know, within the same range in terms of age. So we can remember a time when America, the idea of America was the idea of greatness. When America, there was so much hope in the young people for a bright future. Now, you don't find that hope. Now, hope has been replaced with nervousness, anxiety about the future. When you think about where America was and where America is today, you know, you wonder how far or how much further can we go before we slide into authoritarianism, if we're not there already? How long before we become a dictatorship? How long before the Constitution is rendered null and void? And it seems that from what is coming out of Washington, we're not far from that. I just saw the other day that there are huge billboards in DC of the president's face, just huge images of the president, one on the Department of Labor, one on Health and Human Services, right on the building. This is stuff that Adolf Hitler did in Nazi Germany. And here we are, we sent American sons and daughters off to fight the Nazi regime and to free Europe and other parts of the world. And now we have become those who are the Gestapo. We are rounding people up. We are denying people, as Kendall said, the process. When did we become that people? Or have we always been that sort of people?
What do you think, Mr. Best? I know you can't save us so much. I really hate to put you. I know we talk in private and we talk off. We can say all kind of things, and I notice you have to keep yourself limited as to what you say because you got stuff going on.
I mean, here's what we can say. I mean, voting is still very much how we keep people in check. As of now, we are still voting. We have an election coming up November 4th. And as long as we keep voting, then it's difficult to lose your ability. The way you lose your right to vote is when you stop voting. So these municipal elections is very low turnout. I mean, even now, we're looking at numbers in terms of what we're expecting in November, and it's not a big number that we expect to see. We're thinking that maybe 34,000 people vote in a county of almost 200,000. So It's a very low percentage for what is really an important election. A lot of people vote in the presidential years. Then you have slightly less vote in the midterm years, but then in these municipal years, it's a really low percentage. And honestly, these municipal elections are probably more impactful on your day-to-day life because these are your township supervisors, your school board, your county row offices. These are all the things that we do in these odd number years. The judge race, very impactful. You're way more likely to see a judge in the Monroe County Court of Common Pleas than you are a federal district judge. We do more.
Yeah, but then it comes down to a matter of trust. And this is where it is, I think, with most of the American people. They don't trust you. They not anymore. They don't trust you. They don't trust the system. They don't trust the administration. And that's kind of where it's come down to. So if people, you say they don't vote, they don't vote because they don't trust you.
Yeah, I have definitely had people tell me that.
Basically,
yeah.
I hear it all the time. You vote for a Republican, you're no good. You vote for a Democrat, you're no good.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much of this back and forth on one side against each other. And that's why I asked if your decisions pretty much, I kind of skipped around it, but your decisions are bipartisan and it shouldn't be based on by any political standards at all. It's
Right.
You did a crime or you didn't do a crime or whatever it comes down to. Your job is to be a judge. But I'm going to tell you, it's making it much difficult these days in order for you guys to do your job just based on the atmosphere that we're living in.
Yeah, well, for sure. But also, I think that there's just a general misunderstanding of what we do in the Court of Common Pleas. Because as you mentioned, like there's a lot that goes through here, probably way more than people realize. And it's not the political stuff that you see in the news, right? So the stuff that goes to the Supreme Court of the United States is not really the type of stuff that we hear at the Court of Common Pleas. The stuff that we do that touches your life, I mean, we do so divorce, custody, child support. Those are things that people are going to see. We do, like all criminals going to go, well, except for federal crimes, are going to go through the Court of Common Pleas. So your DUIs, homicides, those are generally going to be done at the Court of Common Pleas. Land disputes, contract disputes, employment, like these are things that are all heard at the Court of Common Pleas. It hears almost every type of case you can think of. So the chances that you're going to need the Court of Common Pleas in your lifetime is far higher than needing the federal court. Almost like in terms of like fractions, like very, very, very small fraction would go to the circuit court, let alone to the Supreme Court of the United States. So like these things that you see on television are not the norm. These are far and away the minority, the outliers. So the Court of Common Pleas positions are really the ones that are going to affect your life because it's everything. It is the court of general jurisdiction. It touches every aspect of your life.
Well, I'm glad you said DWI. Mm-hmm. And I've had a question regarding DWI in the Commonwealth. So in the Commonwealth, if a person is believed to be under the influence, if an officer reasonably believes that officer can take a person to a healthcare facility like a hospital and do what is called a legal blood draw, that person is also told that if they do not comply with the officer's request for field sobriety and other testing, that their license is suspended. Now, according to the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, you have a right to unreasonable search and seizure. Drawing your blood, right? It's a seizure of your person. And also, they are doing an invasive test. Mm-hmm. Then there's the Fifth Amendment that says you do not have to give testimony against yourself. And yet, you're told if you do not comply with the officer's instructions, which would tend to incriminate you by giving evidence against yourself, wouldn't that be violations of both the Fourth and Fifth Amendment to take a person who you say is intoxicated, who supposedly is not able to form, I guess, a clear legal decision because of their level of intoxication? You can take them to a hospital, subject them to an invasive test without their consent, and then tell them they have to consent to other tests or they're going to lose their license and their privilege to drive in the Commonwealth.
Right.
How do you do that before a person has been brought before a judge, and been found guilty of an offense?
It's a great question. It's one that I have asked when I was in law school. I started like asking these questions, to which there actually is an answer, and it's not terribly complicated. So you're correct. So you have Fourth Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights. You do not have to allow the blood draw. Where the discrepancy is that in order to get the privilege to drive, so it's a privilege, it's not a right. Not everyone has a right to drive. In the Commonwealth, you have to consent. So if you say, I'm not going to consent, there's a refusal law where they say, okay, you don't have to consent, but if you don't, we're not giving you the privilege to drive because we want all of our drivers to consent to blood draws for the safety of the citizens. So there's no requirement that you do it. However, if you don't do it, then they are going to revoke your ability to drive. And they do have the right to do that. That's been tested, and it's been found to be non-violative because you don't have the right to drive. And that's really where it is. It's a privilege, not a right. And for that reason, the state gets to set the rules on who gets to do it and who doesn't get to do it. Much like similarly, if you can't see, if you have a medical condition that causes you, like if you have seizures, you might not be able to drive. Those are all things that would stop you from driving. And those are all permissive.
So I want to ask you a question. This is what I noticed too. When you get pulled over, and I'm African American, so most of the time when they pull us over, we get taken out of the car and get searched. Is that actually legal to do that?
Yes.
Don't they need a warrant
depends.
or something to pull you out of your car, to take you out of your car?
It depends.
I mean, you have to have probable cause, right, to stop you in the
No.
first place.
You
No.
do need probable cause. You do need probable cause. So there's different standards for every step of the way, right? So you need probable cause to pull someone over, right? We have to think that they did some sort of vehicle infraction, some sort of law was broken. You normally would need a warrant. There is a limited exception for vehicle searches. It's called automobile exception. And then there's different rules on whether or not that applies. So without getting into an entire law school class on whether or not the automobile exception applies, there are cases in which they can search an automobile without a warrant. There are cases in which they can't. And it all comes from probable cause. So if, for example, they pulled you over because your left taillight was broken, and then you find out after the stop, my left taillight wasn't actually broken, that the probable cause wasn't real, then everything that comes from that is inadmissible. We call that the fruit of the poisonous tree. So we say, like, if the stop was bad, if they didn't have probable cause for the initial stop, then all of the subsequent actions that came thereafter, those are going to be inadmissible things. So if we pulled you over for a broken taillight that wasn't broken, found drugs in your car, we don't get to admit the evidence that the drugs were in the car because you shouldn't have been pulled over in the first place. So that's how that concept works. So it's pretty complicated. Like I said, there's a whole class on this in law school. We have a whole evidence class, what's admissible, what's not. And it's definitely one of the more complicated subjects, but there's all these different standards for what they're allowed to do, not do, when they can search, when they can't, when they need a warrant, when they don't. So there's a lot to it.
Well, just based on some of my experience, we had we get stopped. What do you call it? Driving while black.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's pretty much enough for probable cause to be stopped. I used to ride up and down 80 to go back and forth to New York, 1,000 miles every week. So I did a lot of driving back and forth. At least 2 to 3 times during the week, I would get pulled over. And when they would pull me over, every time they would pull me out the car and start to search my car. And I don't think it was legal.
Well, you know what? So, Patrick, just so you know, my background is in law enforcement. I was a police officer. I did 20 years. And when you talk about pulling someone out of a car, probable cause, no, you need reasonable suspicion, right? It could just be something going on in the car, furtive movements, something that caught the officer's attention. So you don't need probable cause, you need reasonable suspicion. Now, there is a law here in Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth, that gives an officer the right to ask a passenger to exit the vehicle. I can't cite the case right now, but typically you're directing your attention to the operator of the vehicle. And if you have a heightened sense of awareness, right, that the person may be attempting to hide evidence or a weapon, and you feel that this person may be trying to secrete evidence, or that it poses a threat to you, you can ask that person, order that person out of the vehicle. As long as you don't need probable cause to arrest them, you get reasonable suspicion to get them out of the vehicle. The law in Pennsylvania, and said again, I can't recite the case, allows you to also do that with the passenger under certain circumstances. So, I mean, I know it's a complicated set of circumstances for people who've never been introduced to it. But this is stuff that we had to do every day because the most common interaction with people is in a car stop. So you have to be aware of what you can and can't do as it relates to stopping a motorist, because according to the law, as soon as you activate those emergency lights, you have created a seizure of that person. Essentially, that person is under arrest because they reasonably believe that they cannot leave. So you created a seizure. Now, anything that happens subsequent to that, that's where the problem comes in. Do I pull them out of the car? Did I have, a legitimate reason, a probable cause for pulling over that car? Or am I, the word we were taught in the academy was a pretext. I pulled them over. My real intent is to search the vehicle. So I'll come up with something like, well, your tires look bald.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if a car is traveling on 80 at, highway speed, how do I determine the tread on their tire? I have to be awful close and have to have clear a view of the tires and at highway speed. Really? So I do understand, right? And I've been here over 30 years in the Commonwealth, and I remember when I was looking for homes here, going back and forth between here and New York, I would always see the state police in New Jersey would have people pulled over searching their vehicles. After there was the shooting of 4 minority college students who were traveling south on the New Jersey Turnpike, and the officer reasonably believed that they were, claimed to believe that they may have been drugged or weapons in the vehicle. They found them. They followed into the vehicle. All of these young athletes were in. After that, there was a consent decree in the state of New Jersey that said now, in order for an officer to search your vehicle, you have to give written consent. And I think another thing that people have difficulty with is understanding. A lot of people believe that you do not have a right to refuse, that the officer is always justified in searching your vehicle. That, when they come with you and say, can you open your trunk, that you have an absolute duty to do so, when in fact you have the right to say no.
No. So, Mr. Best, I just want to read you back into Pennsylvania, and I know you're getting all good and ready for your campaign. You said that the voting starts on November 4th?
Well, mail-in voting is going to start shortly. We don't know exactly when the mail-in ballots are going to be mailed out. That'll probably be within the next 2 weeks. The election is November 4th, so mail-in ballots must be returned by 8 p.m. on November 4th. If you're voting in person, it's going to open that morning, 7 a.m. on November 4th, close at 8 p.m. on November 4th.
All right. Well, we're almost about the end of this interview, so we like I said, we like to keep friends coming back to our shows. So anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome. Probably after you become a judge, we may ask you to come back and do a little updates. Let's see how it's going for you, or at least how's it going here in the state of Pennsylvania, especially in our little neck of the woods in Monroe County, because we do have some issues. And we do have some things, we have some complaints, we have things that need to be taken care of. But I said, like I said, everywhere I go, I see you.
I
So,
appreciate that. Yeah, we're doing what we can. We are definitely
and
out there everywhere.
well, what I meant to say is that I see you. I see you when you're not campaigning. So this is the for me that makes a big difference because most of the time, the only time I see candidates or politicians, when they show up at the NAACP, they only show up trying to get our votes. But I see you there all the time. You're a
That's
member.
true. Well, yeah,
You're a member.
I have been one, and it's interesting because you're right, because there's a number of those organizations. NAACP, NCNW, like all of
Right.
these organizations that are out there. I've been member for years, and then there's a number of people who join the year that they're running. They go to campaign, and then they stop going after the campaign's over, after the election.
Yeah, but you're more than just you're more than just a member. I mean, you actually do participate in what's going on.
For sure.
I mean, I see you sit there, you ask questions, you want to know what the hell is going on. Why are you here? Why are you all the time? So I personally, I appreciate that in a person. It makes me have a little more trust in you. And trust is a big issue, especially when it comes to African Americans trying to deal with anyone who's not. My brother.
So just one last question. So you will be based out of the courthouse in Monroe?
Yes, in Stroudsburg.
Okay. Very good.
So people get an opportunity. Know this, man. You see him walking down the street, say hello, because you may have to see him under circumstances. So if you see him, you might want to say hello, or at least be nice to him. So we're gonna say goodbye, Mr. Bass, for you for right now. And me and Mr. Ron, we got a couple of things we need to.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate talking to you guys. Happy to do it.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
My man Ron, what's happening, baby? It's been a crazy week this week, man, with a lot of things that are going on, especially with this crazy ass president of yours. Whew, man. I'm almost. It's almost. I'm looking for a place where I need to start with this man. Just the laws and stuff that they've been coming down with, and again, like I was talking about, not due process, not snatching up people, and not even doing the due process. But what I did like, your boy, what's his Gavin Newsom out in California. Take it off, baby. Take the mask off. We want to see what you look like, because we want to make sure that you are who you say you are. You dig? They got the ICE running around there all over the city, all over Los Angeles, and they're running around like the Ku Klux Klan with the mask on, and just snatching people up. What do you think about that, babe? Did I lose you? Oh man, hold on.
You got me muted.
There you go. I got you now.
In some jurisdictions like New York City, it is illegal to wear a mask, right? Now, certain times of the year, like Halloween, a masquerade party, yes. But if you're just wearing a mask in the street, that is illegal, right? And the police can approach you, ask you, well, why are you wearing a mask? And actually take that mask off. Well, if you can do it to me, you can certainly do it to ICE, right? And I thought about this the other day. A lot of this anti-DEI stuff, right? This is not new. This is just the 21st century version of Jim Crow. Nobody, what's the difference? Years ago, and I'm talking back in the 1920s, right? Our ancestors decided, look, what we realized is that white America, or at least segments of white America, does not want to integrate us, does not want us to be part of the greater society. So they decided to build communities like the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They built Rosewood down in Florida, and a number of these very successful communities throughout the United States. Well, out of jealousy and envy, angry white moms went in and destroyed these towns and cities. The difference today is, or the difference then as opposed to today, I don't think that in 1921, when they burned down the Greenwood section of Tulsa, I don't think there was a willingness or a sense of urgency to protect themselves. I think there was a great deal of fear. So they did not protect themselves. They didn't anticipate that this would happen. I think now in the 21st century, with so many Black people going out in record numbers buying firearms after the first Trump administration, with now people organizing groups to train and prepare for such an event, I don't think that the outcome would be the same today as it was in 1921 when they burned down the entire Greenwood section of Tulsa.
Yeah.
I think that this time there would be a real fight. And I think that people who would come into your community with the expectation of being able to shoot people down like dogs and there being no retribution, I think that today they would be in for a bit of a shock. I think they would learn very quickly that it's not going to fly today.
Well, I've been checking out the Israelites. Have you seen them marching through the streets? And them brothers something else. And then they brought back the Black Panthers. I've been checking them out, doing their little
Mhm.
exercises and working out. Yeah, man, it'll be something that I hope we don't get to that point. I mean, I think the only thing that we're looking for anywhere is respect. I don't want anybody to give me much of anything. I mean, you owe me reparations, but yeah, that's through my ancestors, and you do owe me. And regardless to what they want to say, go back to Africa and all that good stuff. Buy me a plane ticket. I'm out. You understand? But
Right.
other than that, being in this country, yeah, you do owe me. You owe us a whole hell of a lot for all the things that we've made the contributions to this country. Yeah, you owe us. But as far as politics is concerned, I'm just trying to keep up with this man. It's hard as hell to keep up. The firing of Jimmy Kimball, that man, no freedom of speech. You can't say what you want to say in America, and then in America they want to honor and make a martyr out of a guy. He was a white supremacist. He was a racist. Somebody that looked like me. He didn't like women. Didn't like anybody that was brown. Said that we need to have shootings every year in order to keep up with our Second Amendment rights. I mean, this is the guy they want to turn into a martyr. They just killed two congressmen, a husband and wife.
Yeah.
Where's the flags lowered for them? Where's the big martyr for them? And they were politicians. This guy, Charlie Kirk, was not a politician. I feel bad for his wife. I feel bad for his children. But him, I'm sorry. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Okay? That's
Well,
just the way I feel about that.
well, you know what? I noticed that in some places the flags are still at half staff, which is typically only something we see with a politician or maybe a member of law enforcement, something like that, dies in the line of duty. Charlie Kirk, and I heard a very interesting story. When Charlie Kirk was a teenager, he was very arrogant. And this is based on what I heard, right, from someone who knew Charlie Kirk and knew the story. Very arrogant young man. He was bragging while he was in high school that he was only going to go to one college, and that was West Point. And he told everybody, I'm going to West Point. I'm going to probably wear the uniform of the United States Army as an officer. Well, it turns out Charlie Kirk was not accepted to West Point. Rather than say, well, you know what, I couldn't get a recommendation from, a member of Congress, or, my grades were not up to snuff, he said that the reason he didn't get into West Point was because that slot was given to a minority. And he went around just talking about how the minorities were getting unfair advantages. Well, somebody heard him and began to listen more carefully to him and decided to finance him. And that was the genesis of Charlie Kirk
Yeah.
and his Turning Point publication.
Mm. Did you have
So
to work hard to become who you were?
absolutely.
Absolutely. So did I. You know,
Absolutely.
I actually wanted to be an educator. It took me 20 years to go through school, 2 master's degrees. I was on my way to go get a doctorate degree, busting my ass to be somebody. My kids busting their ass to be somebody. Nobody's giving us anything. Nobody ever gave me anything. Anything I ever
Mhm.
got, I had to work for. And I worked my tail off. I worked my tail off. My house, I worked my tail off. I owned it, I paid for it, and I worked my tail off for it. Education and everything else, nobody's giving me anything. And I really wish this country would get away from that. Every time they look at us like they're giving us something. If anything, we gave this country more than what they've given to us.
Well, I think that the problem is this. There's a misconception about giving, right? You know, I've heard members of the white community say, well, we gave you this and we gave you that. When in reality, these are working class people who don't have nothing to give themselves, right? How can you give me when you're just making ends meet? So the fact is, you didn't give anything and we didn't ask you for anything. Anything that we are requesting, we have earned. We pay for in blood, sweat, and tears, right? And we can prove it. It is well documented. See, that's one of the reasons why Trump does not want to talk about Black history. Because when you get into the true Black history, you find out it was us that was building the White House. It was us that was building the US Capitol. We want to say they, some in the white community want to say, well, we built this country from the ground up. When in reality, no, you didn't. You brought people here to do the building. And then you turn around and call those people that did the work lazy. You sat back and watch us do the work, and then you want to say, oh, we're lazy, we're shiftless. When in actuality, after slavery ended in this country, the Black population that was leaving the plantation had all of the labor skills. They had none. So what they decided to do was create labor unions that we couldn't join, so that the jobs now went to them, union jobs. So we had the skills, but we're not allowed to work. That's another reason why we had to start places like the Black Wall Street, so that we could have our own jobs, our
Rosewood.
own hospitals, our own craftsmen.
And
But
every time we start to create something, every time we start to build, every time, I don't care what reason they come up with, what excuses they come up with, but it always seems we build and they burn it down.
right. But then they say that we're lazy. Lazy people could not have built the Black Wall Street, could not have
Trump
built.
recognizes that. You know what Trump said? He was on the air. He's talking about all the great things that America made. And every person that they talked about, from the telephone to the telegraph to every person that they put up there was a Black person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And see, that's the problem, right? If we get into the weeds, shall we say, of who was not white, right? Who has only been colorized, like they do with the black and white movies, colorize them. If we get into the colorization of people, you find a lot of people you thought were white. No, they were not. I was explaining to somebody the other
You
day.
mean Hakeem Jeffries is not white?
Well, Hakeem Jeffries is a whole different story. But
Oh,
what I was going to say was that Beethoven was Black.
Black.
And the person who taught Beethoven also was Black. The man who wrote the Three Musketeers and the Man in the Iron Mask,
Right.
also Black.
Yeah.
But of course, due to the colorization process, all of these people are depicted as white.
Or
And
the conquering ideology.
right,
That's what they did. They conquered, and then they submitted their own ideology as to what shouldn't be, how we should look. I mean, they did it throughout religion and politics, and you can go on and on. But the reason why I named Hakeem Jeffrey, because it's almost time for us to be out. I got to watch the
Mhm.
clock. Recently, they had a proposal or something up where a whole bunch of Democrats and people, Republicans, they all were going to vote about this situation. I forget what they call it with Charlie Kirk. They want to
Right.
mobilize. Well, Hakeem Jeffries voted yes, and to me, as being one of the head of the Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, and if the rest of the Black Caucus vote no, you got to jump in line. You got to go in line. Okay.
Mhm.
Now he didn't do that, and that's why some things about this cat, I'm not too crazy about. I'm not. I
Well,
don't
let me
think
just
he's
say
out there
this.
fighting for us. I think he's out there fighting for what he can do for him.
Well,
But
let me
that's a
just say
personal
this about.
opinion. Just a personal opinion.
Well, let me just say this about Brother Hakeem Jeffries, and I use the term brother very loosely. Hakeem Jeffries is one of the number one recipients of monies from the Israeli lobby, nearly $1 million.
Mm,
So
mm,
look, let's be realistic. We grew up knowing that money talks and the rest walks, right? And money is talking and walking its way through DC, including into the coffers of Hakeem Jeffries. So Hakeem Jeffries, who is the nephew of the noted scholar and professor Leonard Jeffries, first he sold out his own uncle,
mm,
and now he's selling us out. Now,
mm,
if you sell out your family, what are you going to do to those who you don't even know?
mm. And that's where it comes down to everybody that's your skin folk ain't your kinfolk.
Kinfolk. You got it,
Right.
brother.
And on that night, we on that note, we're gonna TikTok away from here, and we're gonna come back next week with another topic. Well, the same topic. We love to talk about politics, but we spread it out a little bit. We talk a little bit more about history and things, the circumstances and things that are going on today. Yesterday, I had a good young man on. I don't know if you checked it out, but he's running for U.S. Attorney General of Illinois, and his name is Andy Williams, and he's running as a Republican. Now, I kind of stepped back a little bit when he said he was running as a Republican, but his answer was kind of cool. He said he was running as a Republican, like the party of Lincoln type of Republican, the Frederick
Mm-hmm.
Douglass type of Republican, with that mindset in mind. And I was saying to him, look, it really don't matter, Republican or Democrat. Okay, if you're joining the Republican and it's going to get your issue through, then join the Republicans. If you feel that Democrat being a Democrat is going to get, it really doesn't matter. Okay, because there's no true friends, there's no true enemies. The only thing is what's on the table at the time. That's it. We agree what's on the table at the time. We're bipartisan. We don't agree, then you go your way and I go mine. So it really doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. And as far as us as Black people, I don't know, man. I wish we could do away with titles altogether, with the Republican, with the Democrat, because all that does is it splits us up too. Now, not only does it separate us from the rest of the people in America, not to divide them up, but it also divides us up amongst ourselves. So I just think we need to vote on a good candidate, the one that we believe in. Don't give him a title of Republican or Democrat. Just he's a candidate. He's the one that we think that's going to do best by us. And this way,
You know,
maybe we get away from that cult attitude.
I just want to end on this note. So I believe that there is more going on than just politics. I believe that there are spiritual forces at work.
Mm.
And I think that for us, Black people who say we do not have leaders, we've always had a leader, but we have forgotten who our leader is, our true leader. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to get political answers to a spiritual question, and the two are not the same. So we need to go back to who we were. We need to go back to our ancestors, to our spiritual system. And then we'll find our source of strength. And then we'll be able to organize. But as long as we're looking for political answers to spiritual problems, we're never going to come up with solutions.
Outstanding. Again, I'm going to say Ashe, and And we
I
checked
see,
out.
brother.
Did you check out what I was telling you about Bantu?
I did. I've been checking on Bantu.
And that's what I tell you. You're Bantu, I'm Bantu, but everybody can't be Bantu. So
No, they cannot.
it's all good. All right, to the people that are watching, thank you very much for tuning in. This is the Empowerment Show. We're here, we do politicking. Can I hit that one right? Because
You
we
got
are the
it.
empowerment. We are the
We're
empowerment network.
politicking.
And we are politicking. That's what me and this brother do every Tuesday. So we'd like you to tune in. I'm here every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. This man is here every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And it don't cost you nothing to pick up the phone and give us a call. The number's always right down there. Please hit the subscribe button because, again, that doesn't cost you anything either. Peace. My name is Kendall Stevenson. Ronald Yates.
I'm Ron Yates. Peace.
And we're out. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. All right, brother. My stomach is on E. I haven't eaten anything since lunch.